What has been a warm and smoky day across central Oregon, and this pattern continues. In fact, we are heating up, keeping the smoke, and there's no precipitation in sight until later this week. Hey everyone, I'm Darrell Winninger, the Chief Meteorologist at Central Oregon Daily News. We're about to take a deep dive into your most reliable forecast. Look at what's been happening, how we started this work week, the changes that are coming up specifically Friday and Saturday. Those are going to be the biggest changes we have through the 7-day planner, and then what happens after that, if any rain is on the way. All that happening through the next several minutes, so buckle up. It's going to be fun. We're going to start things off with traffic cameras across Central Oregon. Notice that there are some shadows on the ground. So the smoke is just filtering the sunshine a little bit, and even though there are some clouds working their way through the high desert, there's just not much at all in the way of precipitation. And this was going to be a wave of moisture that had very low chance of any showers at all. And so there wasn't a lot of moisture to work with in the first place. And when it comes to satellite and radar, at best there are a few sprinkles, some of those over eastern Oregon, and through the last couple of hours there have been a few pockets of central Oregon where we've seen a return on radar, such as just over the 126 to the west of Redmond, but nothing actually reaching the ground with that. Meanwhile, working our way over to Baker City in Baker County, there is a handful of some light thunderstorms, each of them capable of producing some lightning, and some of them are indeed doing just that. But for the rest of Central Oregon, there's just not much to talk about. There is a lot of smoke, and we're tracking several fires. One of those, that's a new fire that's just south of Deschutes County in Lake County, just north of Summer Lake. And that one grew pretty fast through the last 24 hours. It was new yesterday afternoon during the early afternoon hours. But outside of that, most of the smoke that we have over Central Oregon is greatly coming from the Grasshopper Fire as well as the Austin Fire and a few other fires through not just Central Oregon but the Pacific Northwest. And so when we look out across the high desert, we're seeing that smoke. We're seeing some clouds, just nothing in the way of rain. And where we have these areas of thick smoke, that's just going to be settling down again later tonight and bringing us back to poor air quality for much of the high desert. Now, some of the Oregon Hazard Lab cameras, they have this entire network of fire detection cameras that are constantly spinning around, and they have some preset views, and these views aren't showing any smoke plumes, but we do just see that particulate matter floating around in the air. That's why we have reduced air quality. That's why we're expecting poor air quality as we go forward through the rest of tonight, specifically during the early morning hours. But a couple of these cameras have been pointing in and around the Roe Creek Complex fire, and that one is still burning mostly through northern Crook County, through the Ochoco National Forest and Ochoco Mountains, and we are still seeing some smoke plumes develop from that at times, but for the most part, that plus two other fires is really what's putting all this smoke in the air. So we're just going to look around Central Oregon. Right now, what you see is all of the cameras coming from the Oregon Hazards Lab, not just the 3 or 4 that I've already showed you, but all of them. And each one of them shows similar conditions. There has been some clearing, but really that smoke hasn't gone too far, and even more smoke is going to be produced. At this time, our hourly average for the air quality from the DEQ, courtesy of airnow.gov, is moderate for most and good in La Pine. So let's go back just a little bit. Look at today. We started off with some poor air quality. There were some ups and downs in those numbers, but right now we're sitting pretty good. Not quite healthy air quality, but not as bad as it has been, not as bad as it could be. Even some of the real-time sensors, courtesy of eSpace Labs, are at worst showing unhealthy for sensitive groups. Now, during the 5 o'clock show, the one in La Pine was at good air quality. Now it's at moderate. Take from that what you will. Bottom line is, at least it's not poor air quality. And there are going to be times of things worsening. Right now, the purple air sensor is not really coming in. So let's get to the smoke forecast model. It shows that the majority of the smoke that we're seeing is coming from the 2 fires I previously mentioned. The Grasshopper Fire, which is just to the east of Mount Hood, where my mouse is right now, and then the Austin Fire, as well as another fire that's just to the northwest of the Austin Fire, but most of it is coming from this whole area. In fact, the Austin Fire grew from about 1,200 acres to more than, I think, 2,100 acres from this weekend into this morning, and that's just burning a lot. And that's in the forest, and so that it has a lot to burn, and it's not just grasslands like a lot of the fires further off to the east are. And so it's not growing super fast, but it does have a lot to burn through, and it is continuing to grow. It is continuing to produce smoke, and it is continuing to give us the smoke that's just going to make our air quality poor. By 11 o'clock, that wind shifting around at that time, coming back down to a light breeze, and that smoke just sitting over the area through tomorrow morning. Then some periods of clearing are expected, but that same pattern just continues through the next several days. Meanwhile, when we look at the bigger picture, we are focused actually right now on infrared satellite imagery. Now, there's an enhancement that really pulls out those taller clouds. That's where you have the brighter colors, the oranges, the reds. And this one also has some isobars, or lines of constant pressure. That really helps us pick up where we have some stronger winds. And really, when we look at the bigger picture, there's a broad ridge of high pressure out over the Pacific Ocean, almost right over my head. And there is a plume of moisture coming into the California coastline and then into the Pacific Northwest. But to be honest, there's just not a lot of moisture with it. It is subtropical in nature, and it doesn't quite look like it's coming from the remnants of that hurricane or anything like that, because that continues to push even further off to the west. So we have this plume of subtropical moisture that's just coming right into the California coastline and into the Pacific Northwest. It's giving us enough instability for clouds, just nothing that we would need for any rain. And over central Oregon, winds are getting a little breezy at times. So through the rest of this evening, in and out clouds continue. We get the clearing tonight. By tomorrow, it'll be smoky again, but not as much in the way of cloud cover. We continue this pattern through Wednesday. Wednesday, some clouds, that's the best that we have. There's not much changing except for this heating trend and that smoke dancing around over the Pacific Northwest. So when it comes to relative humidity, we're pretty dry. We're sitting in the 20s with a few teens on the map. All of these are measured in percentages. And when it comes to temperatures, we're in the 80s today. Right now in the 80s with 79 in Sisters and 93 degrees in Warm Springs. And so that represents a little bit of a bump in temperatures for most of the high desert, just not everybody. So we're running between 4 degrees warmer and 2 degrees cooler than we were just 24 hours ago on Sunday. And the high temperatures in the last 24 hours, this one really helps to show what's happening, because it shows that a couple spots got into the low 90s today. We hit 90 in Bend as a high. We hit 90 in Madras as a high, and 93 where it's still at in Warm Springs. Still waiting on a few final numbers for the day, but this put us close to average for this time of the year. That average high is 86, so I should say near and above average for this time of the year. Tonight we're getting a little mild, 50s with some 40s, and by tomorrow through the mid 80s into the 90s for most, just not quite everybody. Meanwhile, we're keeping the smoke, we're bringing the heat, and our UV intensity forecast is not going to be changed too much at all. Still in that very high range through most of this week. We are going to see some ups and downs, basically because of more cloud cover. And it's sad to say that even with the amount of smoke that we have, it's not really impacting our UV intensity too much, because the smoke is just filtering the sunshine. It's not killing the sunshine. And that filter doesn't help out the UV intensity at all. So staying very high with a mixture of sunshine and cloud cover through Thursday. By Friday, that's when the change-up arrives. And that change-up is going to bring some sprinkles into the forecast. Notice between now and Thursday at 11 p.m., nada, no rain in sight. A broad ridge of high pressure is the main influencer for our weather pattern. And temperatures during that time heat up. They're peaking on Thursday, and smoke stays in the forecast as long as these fires continue to burn. By Friday, we catch a dip in temperatures. By Saturday, we're back below average for this time of the year. What's happening on Friday and Saturday? Well, I can tell you this. Winds are going to be breezy, even gusty at times. A weak system's rolling through the Pacific Northwest, but it's actually not going to show up on this forecast model because this one right here just doesn't go out far enough. We'll have to get one more in the mix. But between now and then, we do have very little in the way of cloud cover expected. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, some additional clouds, but still very dry. And let me back up real quick. And we're going to come back to this graphic. I did want to show that long-range forecast model. This is the GFS, and this is a model that we typically use just to see a little further out. So by Friday, that weak system is going to be rolling through the Pacific Northwest. More clouds are expected, and there it was. Not much at all, just a chance of some showers. The potential for a few sprinkles, not even much in the way of thunderstorm activity. After that, we dry out, we get that sunshine. And so between now and 5 p.m. on Sunday, some parts of the high desert can expect some showers. It's just not going to be for everybody. Some of us even stay dry, others just catch a few sprinkles. That is pretty much the theme for August in Central Oregon, really this whole summer in Central Oregon. So wind gusts right now, not too impressive at all, between 10 and 15 miles per hour. Actual wind speeds more like 5 to 15 miles per hour. So breezy at times, yes. And we do get a little bit of a bump in those wind speeds through the next 2 hours, then back down to a light breeze, becoming gentle overnight. By Tuesday afternoon, gets a little bit stronger of winds. Notice that it's from about 3 p.m. through 9 p.m., where we're looking at 5 to 15, becoming 10 to 20 miles per hour. And then by Wednesday, we are back down to mostly just 5 to 15 miles per hour. So for tonight, expect 50s with some 40s on the map, more smoke in the air, more air quality down to poor. And through Tuesday, we keep a lot of that smoke, but also catch some sunshine. Not as much cloud cover as we had today. We're talking 80s and 90s, and then we heat up a little bit more Wednesday, a little bit more on Thursday. Our heating trend peaks on Thursday with mid-90s for many of us, just not quite everybody else. Then by Friday, we catch that chance of some light showers. We also get that bigger dip in temperatures, and stronger winds are expected. Our fire danger is going to be extreme through the entire 7-day planner, but it actually gets a little more elevated by the time we get to Friday because of the stronger winds. So more smoke in the forecast, hotter days are on the way, and it's just going to be very dry with nothing in the way of rain until we get to Friday, and even that doesn't look promising. Smoke sticks around and becomes dense at times, bringing us periods of poor air quality, and by late this week, that's when that next system rolls through the high desert. So just to recap on your headlines for this Monday, August 17th, heat is meeting afternoon winds through the next few days, and it's just going to remain very dry. But not only do we have smoke staying in the planner, but our fire danger remains critical. That is the latest in weather. Join us tonight on Central Oregon Daily News. We'll have the latest headlines, your most reliable forecast, and even with a few signatures showing up on radar, a lot of that just isn't reaching the surface. That's it. We'll see y'all later. Join us tonight on Central Oregon Daily News. I'll have more of a breakdown of this forecast. See you then.